This is the Big 3 News lead story of the day.
We're back here with Tim Lyerman on the phone with Sarah Harvey. We're talking about Gary Harvey's case out of New York. And I would like, there's also an additional twist to this story, because in May of 2009 he was actually transferred to a hospital there. Can you explain a little bit what happened then?
Yes, in May 16th, 2009, my husband was transferred from the Chemung County Nursing Home to St. Joseph Hospital. And I was there visiting him that day. He had 2 prior surgeries on the 14th and the 15th for his J-tube, which was an ongoing issue. I mean, my husband's had over 31 J-tube surgeries in a 2-year period. And that's what I kept complaining about. You know, why so many surgeries? You know, this isn't normal. Nobody has this many surgeries for a J-tube in this many years' time. I mean, Terry Schiavo, I talked to Bobby Schindler, and he said, you know, his sister didn't have that many in 15 years. You know, she said like maybe 3 or 4 or 5, not as many as my husband's did in a 2-year period. But anyways, getting back to the May 16th, when he had the 2 surgeries prior to the May 16th, when he was admitted to St. Joseph Hospital, there was a lot of stuff going on there. And May 29th, they decided to have this ethics committee meeting. And I was invited, and then I was told later on that I could not attend because Rita Gould from Chemung County Department of Social Services, who is my husband's appointed guardian, said that I could not attend. So they had this meeting, and they decided, this panel, that they were going to end my husband's life by pulling his feeding tube by starvation and dehydration. And a week later, I found out of this meeting what they wanted to do to him. I mean, they brought his ex-wife and a whole bunch of other people who my husband really didn't know, he never met, into this meeting and had the discussion with them about his medical care and what they were going to do. And then I was the very last person, his wife, to find out what they wanted to do to my husband. So, you know, I was devastated. I went to the media, had that broadcast, you know, that you can't do this to my husband. It's up to God to decide if you live or die. It's nobody else's decision. You know, it's basically up to God.
And they actually issued a do not resuscitate order, is that correct?
Yeah, they did that too, and that was an illegal, they used this MOLS form, which is illegal in the United States, or New York State. I mean, it's not even a actual form. You can just download it on the internet. I mean, I can put a MOLS form on you and say, do not resuscitate you, Rusty. How do you like that?
Yeah, that wouldn't go over too well here in my household, but...
Well, I mean, that's what they did in New York State. They downloaded this MOLS form from some website, and they used it on my husband, and it's not even supposed to be used in hospitals, you know, but they used it on my husband, and it's sticking.
And where do things stand today, then, as far as legal proceedings? Are you making any progress? I know you're representing yourself through all these proceedings, right?
Yes, the legal proceedings I'm still working on. I mean, I plan on going in and fighting for my husband. I'm not going to give up on him, and I'm not going to turn my back on him. You know, I mean, he's fought so many infections and fighting for his life. It's unbelievable how strong this man is. I mean, he's fought infection after infection after infection. And, you know, no man would survive that. I mean, even the doctor said that. You know, I can't believe how strong this man is. He survived all these infections. Nobody survives that. You know, I mean, God has his hands, his arms, his love all over my husband. I mean,
can I comment?
Yeah.
Rusty, let me comment on that.
Yes,
typically most people say that you know, we can't comment on ongoing litigation, but having investigated the case, I think there's reasonable grounds for Sarah to regain the custody and control of her husband, the guardianship. Certainly going to take some doing. We're we're pitching the story to some pro bono attorneys around the country in hopes that we can raise some awareness and get some support for Sarah. But there's certainly a legal strategy in the making. Can't necessarily speak too much on the subject, but it does look very good and positive for Sarah and Gary.
Excellent.
I will say.
Have you tried to reach out any to your legislators there? I know we're not.
You know, Rusty, most people, and we see a lot of this in these guardianship cases, everybody reaches out to the legislators, but the separation of powers prohibits the legislators from ever really getting involved in what's an ongoing court case. And so you get a lot of letters back in response that, gee, you know, we're concerned and we really feel bad for you, but there's nothing we can do. And as a paralegal, I tell folks that, you know, you can write all the letters till you're blue in the face, but until you start reading some law books, you'll never really find the answer. And I was turned on to the idea of self-advocacy by Abbie Hoffman back in the late 1980s, shortly before his death. And I spoke to him on the phone, and he said, you know, Tim, you'll never be able to pay an attorney to care as much about you as you'll care about yourself. And I suggest you find a good law library and get busy. And I did just that. I've spent 20-some years virtually living in law books and law libraries, and I attended, took some continuing education paralegal programs, and I was trained by some pretty good lawyers, and it's remarkable what knowledge does for a person. Is priceless, better than a MasterCard, Rusty.
Well, and I think on the legislative front, though, there is one encouraging sign, at least, that according to the Government Accounting Office, the report that they issued, hopefully there will be some more attention brought to these types of cases, because they've referred this report back to the Special Committee on Aging within the United States Senate, and it's a very detailed report. We'll get into it maybe a little more here later, but they've uncovered numerous cases of alleged abuse, millions of dollars of money that's been assets stolen by guardians.
No question, Rusty.
I mean, my husband, our National Association to Stop Guardianship Abuse, they submitted an open letter to Congress, and my husband is on page 4 of that document about interference of DNR, interference of a wife, you know, and that brought a lot of light and a lot of shed to this whole matter. I mean, I've written thousands of letters in the course of 4 years from the VA, DC, ACLU, you name it. I've been there, done that. They call me Choo Choo now because it doesn't quit, you know. I just keep plugging away, you know. I just have to keep writing my letters until I find somebody that will listen to me.
Well, and you know, this isn't the first story we've heard. We had a story a year or so ago about a lady out of Cleveland, Cuyahoga County, Ohio, Evelyn Schwartz. There was another lady that called into this show. So you're about the third or fourth person that's contacted us regarding this topic, and I think more and more people are starting at least to get their eyes open and see that this is a pressing problem in our country, isn't it?
Well, you got to understand the function of our courts, Rusty, and the nature of a probate proceeding is such that essentially what it is a clearinghouse for people to steal estates. I mean, it's an unlicensed mob that is just doing nothing but stealing property and money. I can tell you more and more cases across the country where people have lost millions and millions of dollars with the stroke of a pen and a mere allegation of some type of disability.
I mean, it's like this guy. He's 80-some years old, and they told him that he can't drive anymore. You know, that's his life. You know, and the guy says, "Well, how did he say that? I can't lose my license. I will kill myself," or something like that.
That's his freedom.
Yeah, that's his freedom. And you know what? They locked him up and threw away the key. You know, he's incompetent. He's crazy, you know, and he needs guardianship. He needs to be guardianized because he made that statement.
I personally lost probably $20-30 million in the course of 59 days, Rusty. It's just appalling what these attorneys and the right kind of language. You know what kind of language to use and on what kind of form to put it on. You're dead meat. I don't care what kind of estate plan you've got, what kind of attorney you think that you have on your side, you'll never find an attorney that will go in against the probate judge and against the probate attorneys that play this game and know how to stop what this machine does to people. You know, there's entertainers in Nashville that have lost millions. There's Britney Spears is currently under a conservatorship in California. You see it all the time with child stars and child actors, and you saw it back in the 60s with the Motown stars, where they were just literally ripped off of all their royalties and their assets because somebody in the management of their life took control of their life and their resources and just literally raped them, Rusty.
And Tim, would you agree, or isn't it true that maybe one of the problems with the guardianship, the process of it, is the fact that there's not really uniform rules from state to state, and a lot of people can become guardians without having background checks or seeing what their credit history or what their criminal convictions are?
That's part of it, but there's also no oversight from the federal court system, Rusty. In the federal courts, there's what's called the probate exception to federal jurisdiction. And to sue a guardian in federal court is next to impossible because the federal courts have long held that the probate process is specialized and the states are better suited to handle the matters of probate. And so this doctrine has empowered the state courts to be corrupt because they know that nobody is looking over their shoulder. There's no accountability whatsoever. And the practice of law in this area is so finitely unique. I mean, the law of insanity and incompetency and legal capacity is what they call sui generis. It's of its own kind. It doesn't follow any of the legal theory that every other aspect of law and legal practice follows. And so consequently, as attorneys and lawyers are trained through law school, they're only given 3 and 4 hours of training on disability law in general, let alone to understand and grasp what the nuances of guardianship law and the capacity of what legal capacity law is about. It's really unique, Rusty. I mean, and the Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court has written the rule of law in this area around criminal proceedings and what is the not guilty by reason of insanity defense and the incompetent to stand trial by defense. Because the probate exception has kept the civil cases out of the federal court, there's no federal guidelines for the state courts to follow. So it's really weird. It's really weird, and you don't have enough time on today's program to cover it all.
Yeah. I'll
give you back to Sarah, and we'll pick it up later, Rusty.
Okay, I appreciate it, Tim. Nice to talk to you.
Rusty, one thing I did want to touch base on is I have an insurance for my husband, health care insurance.
Okay.
And what this county has done, they divorced me from my husband. They, when I want to file a complaint or I want to know what they're charging my insurance company, I want an itemized statement, I'm being denied. They hide under the HIPAA guys. And it's like, you know, I called my insurance company, want to know what they're charging. Well, we can't tell you because of HIPAA. It's my policy, I pay for it, but the county says, no, don't tell her, she has no right to know, da-da-da. So, you know, where does that leave me? You know, I'm paying for something and I don't get the service.
With a tortious interference of contract claim.
And
exactly.
So, I mean, it's sad. It's unreal. I mean, I can't understand or contemplate why I cannot have access to my insurance claims of my husband. You know, all I want is an itemized statement. I don't want to know exactly his medical condition. Just tell me what you're charging.
Exactly.
But, you know, they don't want to tell me that, so what are they hiding?
Right.
Is there, like, dipping going on here? Is Medicaid getting charged at the same time? I mean, how do people know if you're being blinded by all this? And you know, even my insurance company, they can't investigate because the county says no. I just don't understand it.
And you also mentioned in correspondence with me about you weren't able to have access to the actual court documents, but the media was able to get it for you, and you felt very frustrated by that, didn't you?
Yeah, because Fox News got a copy of it. I didn't get a copy of it. I went down there yesterday.
Fox News contacted the court, and they received documentation from your case, correct?
Well, yeah, that's right. Fox News was at my house. They did an interview.
But you as a petitioner, or as you as a party to the case, you weren't able to see those documents.
That's correct. That's correct. Yeah, Fox News gets it, but I don't.
That's due process, isn't it?
Well, Sarah, I'll tell you, it's definitely a complex case, and our heart goes out to you because you've been through a lot. You're fighting for your husband. Why
don't you ask for those records for me?
I can try. I can do that.
Well, why don't you try and call the courthouse and see if you can't get those records? I mean, Fox News has got them.
If you email me the information, give me the contact information, they must have got them under some sort of Freedom of Information request, I would suspect.
That's what I tried. I mean, you know how many of those I've applied for?
No, they just didn't want the litigation from Fox News, Rusty.
Well, see, Fox News has the legal team. They have the resources to back it up. I'll do my best, though. I mean, I'm composing an article regarding your story, and that's research material that I could use. I'm going to request them and see if we get them.
Yeah. It's kind of funny because Fox was at the house just the other day, and the first thing they said was they had the court records, and I looked at them and said, "You can't possibly have them." And they said, "Well, they're public. They're available for anybody." And I said, "Really? We've been denied twice, I mean."
If they're a public record, you should have access to them. If you're a party to the case, you should have access to them.
And seal the records, though.
The judge issued a seal on them, Rusty, but in the same breath as the petitioner in the case, how can she participate in the course of the administration of the case without the court records?
Exactly. You have to understand what all of the facts are that's being presented to the court and able to represent your husband.
That is an extrinsic fraud, Rusty, that keeping a person from court and keeping them ignorant of what is going on in court is reasons for avoiding the court proceeding.
Politics, faith, and love. You're watching Big 3 News, where we cover the stories that matter the most.